Yeah.
Welcome back to the Gridiron Expert, back here on YouTube, bringing you some of the best college football news, predictions, and analysis. We are continuing our series on some of the biggest head coaching changes of this offseason. In our first video, touched on Colorado and their brand new hire in Karl Dorrell. Now we're going to take a look at the former head coach of Colorado, Mel Tucker, who after just one season in Boulder left to take the head coaching job at Michigan State after Mark Dantonio surprisingly resigned after 13 years as head coach in East Lansing. And that's where we have to start. Before we even start talking about Mel Tucker, we have to touch on Mark Dantonio. He shocked the nation in early February, announcing that he was done, that he was retiring after 13 years as the winningest head coach in Michigan State football history with a 115-57 record. He led the Spartans to the college football playoff in 2015, but after that, the Spartans seemed to struggle a little bit. Never really could seem to get back on track following that shutout loss in the playoff to Alabama. Dantonio, as great as he was at Michigan State, one of those coaches that we always said was one that you could never underestimate, really had a tale of two halves during his time as head coach with the Spartans. From 2010 to 2015, he went 65-16. 65-16. Records of 11-2, 11-3, 7-6, 13-1, 11-2, and then 12-2. That was the year, of course, they made the college football playoff. Following that, from 2016 through 2019, he went just 27-24. So remember, 165-16 from 2010 to 2015, 27-24 from 2016 to 2019. He only had one losing season during that stretch, a 3-9 season, but 7-6 really wasn't what the Spartan faithful were hoping for after so many great years at the beginning of the decade. But Mark Dantonio, the winningest head coach in school history, a coach that out of all the coaches in the entire nation, you never wanted to count out. One where Michigan State always was a threat in the Big Ten, even in their down years, resigned, surprisingly, leaving Michigan State searching for a head coach around the time of National Signing Day. You can't ask for a worse time to look for a head coach. Yes, we have the early signing period, which Mark Dantonio was around for, but National Signing Day in February takes place, and the Spartans are struggling, looking for a new head man. And it took them a little while to find their guy. You know, there were rumors that maybe they were going to go get someone that had Big Ten ties. The Brett Bielema name was circling around quite a bit because he did so well at Wisconsin, who, of course, is in the Big Ten, but did not replicate that success during his time at Arkansas. But the administration at Michigan State decided to go for Mel Tucker. They went for him first. He shot him down. He went for him again, and he could not turn down that offer. Mel Tucker taking his third job in the past 3 years. He was defensive coordinator at Georgia in 2018. Spent 1 year as head coach at Colorado, where he went 5-7, 3-6 in Pac-12 play in 2019. And now, in his third year, is now the head coach at Michigan State. And, you know, he got a lot of hate and a lot of backlash from recruits and current players at Colorado for leaving to take this Michigan State job. Probably received backlash and hate from fans as well. But I sit here and ask you, what was Mel Tucker supposed to do? Yes, he did receive an offer the first time and was not going to take that Michigan State job. He was adamant about staying at Colorado, wanting to build something. But anytime this happens, whether it's now in February, a horrible time to be looking for a head coach, or in the middle of November before the season even ends, no coach ever comes out and says, yes, I am leaving to take this job. Or yes, I am interviewing for this job. You know, you go look at anybody. One of the more famous ones is Nick Saban during his time as head coach of the Miami Dolphins. There were rumors going around that he was going to leave to take the head coaching job at Alabama, and he was adamant that he was not, that he was sticking with the Miami Dolphins. A few weeks later, he left to take the job at Alabama, and the rest is history. No coach is going to come out and say that. Mel Tucker was no exception, and he is getting $5.5 million this year as head coach of the Spartans. He got $2.4 million as head coach at Colorado last year. Michigan State more than doubled his salary as a head coach, and I can promise that anybody, regardless of what your job is, would leave immediately to take a job that doubles your salary. So what was Mel Tucker supposed to do? He's not going to come out and say, yes, I'm leaving for Michigan State. He was completing his job and doing his duties, recruiting and doing his job for the Colorado Buffaloes until Michigan State gave him an offer he just could not refuse. And I do not blame him one bit. I do not blame him one bit. It was a solid hire by the Spartans. They got their guy. Mel Tucker does not deserve the kind of hate and backlash that he has, and maybe still does, receive. Now the question is this. We've talked about that. We've talked about Mark Dantonio and kind of the events and days leading up to this hire of Mel Tucker, but how is he going to do? How is he going to do at Michigan State? Because once again, this was a solid hire by the Spartans considering the circumstances, considering they had to look for a brand new head coach and some of the best head coaches and best options were off the market, by the time this rolled around in February. The coaching carousel we thought had really come to an end in January. And now here we are at the beginning of February. Michigan State's looking for a new head coach, and the same could be said for Colorado before they hired Karl Dorrell. So how will Mel Tucker do in 2020? I will say this. He has some very tough circumstances, not just because of this timing, but also because he loses a lot of starters from these past 2 seasons of Michigan State football. And 2 seasons where the Spartans went 7-6 both years. Disappointing, yes, because they had 19 returning starters in 2018. They had 17 returning starters in 2019. I think everybody, including myself, had higher expectations for Michigan State. We expected to see performances of those teams that we saw win 10, 11, sometimes 12 games between 2010 and 2015. Mark Dantonio and the Spartans just couldn't get the job done. But he loses a lot of experience. He loses a lot of experience from those past 2 teams. Loses a lot of experience from this past team that went 7-6 and did win their bowl game over Wake Forest. And when you look at the schedule for Mel Tucker in Michigan State, it certainly is not very easy. They have a non-conference game on the road against an improving BYU team, one that, of course, you never want to underestimate. BYU is just one of those pesky teams where sometimes I feel like you're either going to blow them out or you're going to lose. There's really no in between. BYU struggled a little bit last year, but Kalani Sitake, I think, really trying to build something there, and we'll see some major improvement in 2020. It's a road game on the road against BYU. A home game against Miami. A game against Miami that could show an improved Hurricanes team, especially with the addition of transfer quarterback D'Eriq King, now in year 2 under Manny Diaz. And then, unfortunately for Michigan State, they draw 2 of the more difficult teams out of the Western Division of the Big Ten. A road game at Iowa, which, as we all know, Kinnick Stadium is one of the most difficult places to play in the entire country. And then a home game against Minnesota, who we listed as one of the biggest surprise teams in all of 2019 and could be poised for an even bigger 2020. Luckily, they get them at home, but still, they are not the 2 most favorable teams to draw from the western side of the Big Ten. Keep in mind that the Spartans are in the East, so they're playing teams like Michigan, Penn State, and Ohio State. They have Ohio State and Michigan in back-to-back weeks and have a road game in Happy Valley against Penn State and the Nittany Lions. So right there, Big Ten, as we've said, has been one of the more difficult Power 5 conferences, right on up there, I feel like, with the SEC, and they draw 2 of the more difficult teams out of the West. They're probably in the most difficult division of the Big Ten, which is that Eastern Division, and then you have tough road games at BYU, and then a home game against Miami. It's not easy for Mel Tucker. It's not easy. And as we know, and as we always say, with any new head coach, you have to give them time. Sometimes you get a brand new head coach who comes in year 1 and thrives, who does exceptionally well. But Michigan State has kind of disappointed these past 2 years, especially with a lot of experience that they've had, especially on the offensive side of the ball where they have struggled mightily. Brian Lewerke never really finding his groove. They could be in for yet another rough go-around in 2020. Yes, they want to hope to get to a bowl game, but considering the schedule, considering the circumstances, that may or may not be the case. Of course, we'll share that official prediction with you here in a few months. So what is our grade for the Mel Tucker hire? What do we think about Michigan State going out and getting their man? We give this hire a B-. Not good enough to be an A for me, but once again, considering the circumstances, this was a good hire. They went out and got a current head coach of a Power 5 program, one where I thought that had Mel Tucker stayed at Colorado, he certainly would have built something. I thought the future looked very bright for the Buffaloes in the Pac-12, despite him going 5-7 in his first year there. So I really do think he would have built something there, and I think he can probably do the same here in East Lansing. But it's probably just not going to be this year. Like we said in our first video regarding Carl Durrell at Colorado, Mel Tucker needs time here at Michigan State. I don't expect them to contend for a Big Ten championship in year one. I don't expect them to compete very strongly against some of the Big Ten elites in year one, such as the Iowa, Minnesota, Wisconsin, Penn State, Michigan, and especially Ohio State. It might be a tough go-around in year one. But the future looked bright for him at Colorado. I would expect nothing less here at Michigan State. Sparty fans, just give him time. You went out and got your man. Now support him. And Mel Tucker, with the money that he has, with a very large budget at Michigan State, is going to go out, get some very solid assistants, and try to bring Michigan State back up to that dominant performance and dominant teams that we saw in the earlier part of this past decade. So guys, thank you so much for watching us here on YouTube. Make sure to like this video and check out everything we have for you in the description below. Tons of more content coming your way in the following days, in the following weeks. And boy, we cannot wait for summer to roll around for our game-by-game predictions for every single Power 5 school. So do not miss out on that. And once again, as always, thank you for watching. Please continue to like, comment, and subscribe. And we will see you next time on The Gridiron Expert.